Once upon a rainy night, I found something in my uncle's attic that should have stayed hidden forever. A black leather journal with strange burn marks, and a symbol that seemed to stare back at me. My best friend saw it and told me only one thing: burn it. Tonight. But I didn't listen. And that mistake is the reason I'm not alone in this room right now. It was a cold, rainy night when I decided to clean my late uncle's attic. The house was old, and every step on the wooden floor made a deep, creaking sound. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts, and the smell of damp wood filled my nose. I had a flashlight in one hand and a box in the other, moving things around, when I noticed an old trunk in the far corner. The trunk was covered with a thick, moth-eaten blanket. It looked like no one had touched it in years. My curiosity got the better of me. I pulled the blanket off and saw the wood of the trunk was blackened, almost as if it had been burned at some point. The lock was broken, so I slowly opened it. Inside, under some yellowed papers and broken picture frames, I found it, a thick, black leather journal. Its edges were burned, the cover scratched with strange marks. In the middle of the cover, there was a symbol I had never seen before. It looked like an eye, but twisted and bent in a way that made me feel uneasy. I picked it up, and the moment my fingers touched the leather, a shiver went through me. The attic suddenly felt colder, and I could hear the rain outside growing heavier against the roof. My flashlight flickered for a second. I thought maybe it was just my imagination. After all, it was just an old book, right? I sat on the floor and wiped the dust from the cover. There was no title, no name, no hint about who had written it. But something about it made me feel like I had just opened the door to something I shouldn't. If I had known then what I know now, I would have put it back in the trunk. Or better yet, I would have burned it right there. But instead, I slipped it into my backpack and took it home. That was the first mistake. The next afternoon, I met my best friend, Mark, at the small coffee shop near my house. I had the journal in my backpack. I couldn't stop thinking about it since last night. The strange symbol on the cover kept flashing in my mind, almost like it was calling me. While we waited for our drinks, I pulled it out and placed it on the table. "Look what I found in my uncle's attic," I said, trying to sound casual. Mark froze. He didn't even touch the journal, just stared at it with wide eyes. Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice low. "I told you. In my uncle's attic." "Why? You know what it is." He leaned closer, his face pale. "You need to burn it. Tonight. Don't read it. Don't open it. Just burn it and forget it exists." I laughed nervously. "Come on, it's just an old book. What's the big deal?" Mark shook his head. "You think it's just a book? My grandfather had that journal. I remember him throwing it into the fire, but it didn't burn. After that, things started happening. Bad things. He told us never to speak of it again." A strange silence filled the air between us. The background noise of the cafe faded from my ears. I could feel my heartbeat in my chest. "What kind of things?" I asked. Mark's eyes darted to the door, then back to me. "Things you can't explain. Things you can't stop. Just promise me you'll burn it before midnight." I didn't promise. Instead, I zipped the journal back into my bag, forcing a smile. "Relax, man. It's just a story." But when I looked at Mark's face, I could tell. He wasn't scared of a story. He was scared of the truth. That night, I sat at my desk with the journal in front of me. The rain was still falling outside, just like the night I found it. Mark's warning kept echoing in my head. Burn it before midnight. But the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to know what was inside. I told myself I'd only look for a few minutes. Just one page. Then I'd put it away. The leather cover felt cold under my fingers as I unlatched it. The hinges creaked, almost like the book was sighing after being shut for so long. The pages were yellow and brittle, the ink faded in some places but still clear in others. The first page had no title, only a strange sentence written in messy handwriting. "What is written here is alive." I frowned, flipping to the next page. There were sketches, human shapes but without faces. Some had long, twisted arms. Some were standing in forests. Others looked like they were staring directly at whoever opened the book. The dates on the entries shocked me. Some went back more than 100 years. The handwriting changed from page to page, like many different people had written in it over time. As I turned another page, my lamp flickered. I froze, looking around my room. Nothing seemed out of place, but the air felt heavier, almost thick. I kept reading. One entry described a tall figure with an eye symbol on its chest, watching the writer in their dreams. Another page talked about voices whispering at night, saying things no one should hear. Then I heard it. A faint sound like someone breathing right behind me. I spun around. No one was there. My window was shut. My door was locked. When I looked back at the journal, I realized something terrifying. The page I was on was blank when I first opened it. Now, fresh words were appearing on their own, the ink crawling across the paper. "I see you." My hands shook. I slammed the journal shut, but deep inside, I knew it was already too late. I tried to sleep that night, but I couldn't stop thinking about the words that had appeared in the journal. "I see you." Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined someone, or something, standing in the dark corner of my room, just watching me. Around midnight, I finally drifted off, but a loud click made my eyes snap open. My lamp had turned off by itself. The room was completely dark except for the faint glow from the streetlight outside. At first, I thought maybe the power had gone out, but then I saw movement. In the far corner of my room, right where the light didn't reach, a shadow shifted. It wasn't the kind of shadow made by furniture. This one was tall, much taller than me, with long, thin arms that seemed to stretch down to the floor. It didn't move like a person. It swayed slowly, like it was breathing. I froze, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I told myself I was imagining it. I blinked, but it was still there. I reached for my phone to use the flashlight, but before I could unlock it, the shadow glided, not walked, closer. The air around me dropped in temperature so fast I could see my breath. Then in the silence I heard it. A whisper. Low. Almost impossible to understand. But I was sure it came from the direction of the journal on my desk. The shadow stopped just a few feet from my bed. I couldn't see its face, if it even had one, but I knew it was looking at me. My whole body was frozen. And then my phone lit up in my hand without me touching it. A single notification appeared on the screen. From unknown. Message. Don't look away. I did the only thing my body let me do. I closed my eyes and prayed for the sun to rise. After the shadow appeared in my room, I barely slept. When I did, the dreams were worse than being awake. The first dream started the same way every night. I was standing in the middle of a forest I didn't recognize. The trees were black and twisted, their branches reaching out like claws. The air was heavy with smoke, and I could hear the sound of crackling fire in the distance. Then I'd see him, the tall figure from the journal sketches. He stood perfectly still among the trees, his body pitch black, blending with the shadows. On his chest, glowing faintly in the darkness, was the twisted eye symbol from the journal's cover. He never moved at first, just stared. But the longer I looked, the closer he seemed to get, without walking. One moment he was far away, the next he was only a few steps in front of me. When I tried to run, the ground beneath me would turn to ash, crumbling under my feet. I'd hear whispers all around me, dozens of voices speaking at once, all saying the same words over and over. Right in the book. No matter which way I turned, the figure was always there. Watching. Waiting. Every time I woke up, my heart was racing, my skin cold with sweat. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks after reading the journal. But then I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Each morning, the journal would be lying open on my nightstand, even though I kept it locked in my desk drawer before going to sleep. And on the open page, new words appeared in the same shaky handwriting. You can't run from me. That was when I realized the dreams weren't just dreams. They were visits. The morning after another nightmare, I called Mark. I didn't even try to hide the fear in my voice. Mark, it's happening. The dreams. The voices. The journal moves on its own. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I'm coming over. Don't touch it until I get there. An hour later, he showed up at my house, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. His eyes immediately went to the journal sitting on my desk. It was open. I hadn't touched it since last night. Mark stepped forward and slammed it shut. I told you not to open it, he said sharply. I didn't, I argued. It opens by itself. Mark's hands were shaking. Listen to me. This thing belonged to my grandfather. He was a hunter, but not the kind you're thinking of. He hunted things that shouldn't exist. This journal is a record and a trap. Every person who writes in it, or even reads it, becomes part of it. I frowned. Part of it. What does that mean? Mark glanced toward the window as if checking for something outside. My grandfather burned half of it after something got out, but the rest survived. And it's still hungry. He sat down across from me. Once it notices you, you can't make it forget. The only thing you can do is destroy it, but it won't let you. It'll trick you, scare you, weaken you until you give in. I laughed nervously. You make it sound like it's alive. Mark's expression didn't change. It is. I looked at the journal again, lying perfectly still on the desk. For a moment, it was silent in the room. And then the sound of slow, deliberate scratching came from inside the book. Mark stood quickly. We have to try again. Tonight. Before it's too late. That night, Mark stayed over. We agreed we wouldn't sleep. We'd watch the journal until sunrise, then take it somewhere far away to burn it. We sat in my room with only one small lamp on. The journal lay closed on my desk. Hours passed. Nothing happened. I started to feel stupid, like maybe the fear had just been in my head. Then at exactly 2:47 a.m. we heard it. A faint scritch, 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 like fingernails dragging slowly across paper. Mark and I locked eyes. The sound was coming from the journal. I stood up slowly and stepped closer. The scratching didn't stop. It almost sounded eager. Without thinking, I reached out and opened it. Fresh words were appearing on the page right in front of us. The ink forming letter by letter as if an invisible hand was writing them. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, but still readable. I am here now. My mouth went dry. Mark, it's writing to me. He grabbed my arm. It's not writing to you. It's claiming you. The scratching continued, faster now. New words crawled across the page. Look outside. Against every bit of common sense, I turned toward the window. Outside, in the dim yellow light from the street lamp, stood a figure. Tall. Motionless. The twisted eye symbol glowed faintly on its chest. I stepped back from the glass, my heart pounding in my ears. When I looked again, the figure was gone. Mark slammed the journal shut and shoved it into his backpack. We're leaving. Right now. As we walked toward the door, the lamp in my room flickered violently, and from inside the backpack, we heard a low, drawn-out whisper. You can't run. We didn't waste time. Mark and I grabbed our coats and headed for his car. The night air was freezing, and the street was completely silent. No wind, no distant traffic, nothing. It felt like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Mark kept glancing over his shoulder as we walked. "It knows we're trying to leave," he muttered. Halfway to the car, I heard footsteps. Not ours, heavier, slower, like something big was following us. I turned, but the street behind us was empty. We got into the car, and Mark started the engine. The headlights cut through the fog that had started to creep along the ground. As we pulled away, I saw movement in the rearview mirror, a tall, dark figure standing in the middle of the road, watching us. "Don't look at it," Mark said quickly. "If you do, it'll follow faster." I tried to keep my eyes forward, but my curiosity won for just a second. When I looked again, the figure was closer, much closer, even though the car was moving. Mark pressed harder on the gas. "We're not going home. We're going somewhere it can't cross easily." "What do you mean?" I asked. "A church," he said. "Places like that slow it down. Sometimes." Before I could ask more, the car's radio turned on by itself. A low static hiss filled the speakers, followed by a whisper. "Bring it back." My stomach dropped. The whisper wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from the backpack in the back seat, where the journal was. The temperature inside the car plummeted. My breath came out in white clouds. The fog outside thickened until it felt like we were driving through a tunnel of smoke. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw something impossible. A hand, pale, with long blackened fingers, pressed against the inside of my passenger side window. But we were still moving 60 miles an hour. We made it to the edge of town, where an old abandoned farmhouse stood. Mark said it was far enough from people, just in case things went wrong. The fog had followed us all the way there. We got out of the car and went behind the house, where an old fire pit sat half buried in the dirt. Mark dropped his backpack on the ground and pulled out the journal. It looked exactly the same, no damage, no dirt, as if it had been waiting for this moment. "Light it," Mark said, tossing me a box of matches. My hands shook as I struck one. The small flame danced in the wind. I dropped it onto the journal. The fire caught instantly, but instead of orange flames, they turned black. Thick, oily smoke poured out, smelling like burned hair. The cover of the journal twisted under the heat, almost as if it were alive. Then I heard it. Not just one voice, but hundreds, all whispering at once from inside the smoke. I couldn't understand the words, but the sound made my skin crawl. The black fire grew higher, but the journal didn't burn away. The pages didn't even curl. Instead, strange symbols began to glow along the edges. The same twisted eye from the cover repeating over and over. Mark stepped back. "It's fighting us. We need more fuel." I grabbed an old wooden crate nearby and threw it into the pit. The flames swallowed it, but the journal still didn't burn. Suddenly, the fire went out completely, snuffed out in a single breath, like someone had blown on it. The journal lay in the ashes untouched. Then slowly it opened by itself. On the first page, fresh ink began to appear. "Nice try." The ground beneath the fire pit began to tremble. I heard something moving below us, something big. Mark grabbed my arm. "We have to go. Now." But when I turned toward the car, there was someone, or something, already standing in front of it. The figure stood in front of the car, tall and perfectly still. The twisted eye symbol glowed faintly on its chest, pulsing like a heartbeat. Even in the thick fog, I could see that its head was tilted slightly, as if it was studying me. Mark froze beside me. "Don't move," he whispered. But the figure didn't wait. In one slow step, it was suddenly closer, much closer, like the space between us had been erased. I could feel the air around it, cold and heavy, pressing against my skin. Then I heard the sound of paper tearing. I looked down. The journal had floated up from the fire pit on its own, and was now hovering in front of me, pages flipping wildly as if caught in a storm. The pages stopped on one that was completely blank. Black ink began to appear, forming words letter by letter. You belong to me now. My vision blurred. My legs felt like they were sinking into the ground. The fog swirled around my ankles, holding me in place. Mark grabbed my arm and tried to pull me back, but the ground beneath him split open slightly, as if something was clawing its way up. The figure leaned in closer. Its face, if you could call it a face, was just darkness, but inside that darkness, dozens of small, glowing eyes blinked at me. The whispers were everywhere now, in my ears, in my head, inside my chest. They weren't speaking in words anymore. They were pulling. Mark shouted my name, but his voice sounded far away. The last thing I saw was the journal snapping shut, the twisted eye on the cover glowing brighter than ever. Then everything went black. I woke up in my bed this morning. My house was quiet. For a moment, I thought it was all a dream, until I saw the journal on my nightstand, open to a fresh page that simply said, Chapter 2 begins tonight.